some good questions, by the way. There's a lot of questions today. I'll try and smash through as many as I can. Yeah, I'll start with question number one. Have you noticed that people often start personal development when they hit rock bottom, but once they start feeling better, they become stuck in a comfortable state that prevents further progress? How do you help someone push past this plateau to continue growing? This is very, very normal. Um, Basically, people start personal growth when they hit what's called a crisis. In psychological terms, this is a period of time of such uncomfortable emotional state that you would rather do something else to get out of it. Okay, so a crisis is you're so uncomfortable emotionally, you want to significantly change what's happening in your life. And, or as I think it's Tony Robbins, something like the pain of change becomes less than the pain of staying the same. That's a crisis. Because most of us want to stay in stasis. So most of us will stay with whatever misery we've got if we perceive changing to be more miserable, more painful. So crisis is the opposite. So what people call rock bottom, I mean, it might be their rock bottom, but there's always worse. Um, but it feels like that to them, and so they go, fuck this. And that's, in my opinion, that is the single greatest source of motivation, is when you look at your life and you go, fuck this. And you really like, now you've got like this nothing to lose mentality, like something has to move. I'm willing to get very uncomfortable to change this. People often think of motivation as inspiration and, this kind of pleasurable sensation. So no, we're not motivated by pleasure. Pleasure motivates us to stay. Change is motivated by displeasure, discomfort. And it's good to keep that in mind. If you ever want to change yourself, it's not about trying to seek pleasure, but trying to turn the screws on what you find painful until you can't take it anymore and you have to change. And yes, it is very common that people do this. Fuck this, they go and they take some actions, they relieve the immediate suffering somewhat, and then plateau, often followed by a relapse. This is really, really normal. I used to see this all the time when we did live Brojo like meetups. Uh, a guy would come in. This is what would usually happen. A guy would come in. His crisis would be that he just really struggles with dating and romance. So nothing's happening in the women's space for him. And he's in that fuck this place. It's been too long. He's too lonely. He'll do anything now. He'll show up to a random group of dudes at a pub and ask for advice. He's willing to try anything. And it being Brojo, what we usually recommend is he tries some version of radical honesty, courageous honesty. And what'll happen is he'll do that, and he's doing it for all the right reasons to begin with. Like, fuck this, I'm going to impress myself. I'm going to build my own self-confidence. I'm going to stop trying to be attached to outcomes. And because he's like that, it works. And he starts getting women attracted to him and so on. And this pattern, I must have seen this pattern repeat maybe 2 dozen times. Guy'd come in, no success with women. He'd start being radically honest. He would get a girlfriend, and then he would disappear off the face of the fucking earth. Just ghost us completely. It was the weirdest thing. We'd be like, fuck, he's doing well. I think things are going well with that girl. And it's like, hey, where is he? It's been a couple of weeks. And what happened every single time, well, they didn't always come back every time, but the feedback I got every single time was he got the girl, you might say, with honesty and everything, got immediately like, that relief, the suffering's over, and then lapsed back into nice guy behaviors to try and keep the girl, which inevitably eroded the relationship, which was founded on honesty, and now he's switched. And then he might, but half the time, come sort of crawling back to Brojo about a year later, going, I don't know what happened. And this is the pattern we're talking about here, where you get some immediate relief from a change in behavior, and then your brain kind of uses that, weaponizes it to go like, okay, you've done enough, relax. And what it's saying is it's that old thing, your brain's just constantly trying to get back to stasis, trying to get back to familiarity. Your brain does not like change. It only likes it at crisis points when change is not as bad as staying the same. But once you're past that, or once you perceive in some way that things are a little bit easier, your brain just immediately tries to like lock in another, like it's trying to park the car all the time. So every time you idle, it just whips into a car park and stops. It just doesn't like driving. And you will have to battle against this your entire life if you want to continually progress and evolve. It isn't always as hard. It gets easier to deal with this. It becomes like for me at the moment, I describe it as like having a toddler tugging at your leg now and then. It's like a minor resistance that you can just sort of push away from. But back at the early stages, like right after crisis, those first changes, it feels like being put in a chokehold. It feels invisible. You're suddenly back to doing nothing again. You don't know how it happened. Um, but this is very 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 common. And I think the best frame to look at it is my brain always wants familiarity. It always wants to conserve energy. That's the whole function of the organ, conserve. It's all the brain is programmed to do. Every fancy thing it does is in service of the goal of conservation. Ironically, yeah, it's just sort of conserving oxygen more than anything else. And change uses a lot of resources. Right? When you're dragging along the bottom, if it's a familiar bottom and you're doing familiar dragging, that doesn't actually take a lot of brain power. Even if you're anxious all the time, if anxiety is your normal, then it's easy for you to be anxious. The chemicals are already dumped into the system. It doesn't have to do much to maintain constant anxiety or stress or fucking depression. They might feel to us like it's great suffering and a lot of work, but to the brain, that's actually coasting. Having to learn new stuff. You noticed how university students are always sleeping in the lectures, just passing out all the time? Because of the constant learning. The brain just gets exhausted by learning. And change is learning. It's going from, I don't know anything about this to knowing something about it. And that is about building neural pathways, and it hurts the brain to do this. So it's constantly looking to stop doing that. It doesn't want to do any more than what's needed to survive. And of course, when you elevate off the bottom, I mean, a 1 out of 10 feels twice as good as a 0 out of 10, at least temporarily. And so you're just like, oh, relief. It's like the kind of relief people get when they promise to do something. They're like, I'm going to start eating properly on Monday. And it feels so good to say that it's almost like you have started. And it's like, well, why would I need to start if I feel this good about myself? And it's actually a little trick to stop you from doing it. Right? So that's just to give some background on it. What I think the question is really asking is how do you push past this plateau? And I think there's lots of technical ways of doing it or practical ways. But the main one comes from the acceptance, the belief, this is always going to be a bit hard. Your brain's not lying when it says, I'm too tired. It's embellishing. It's saying this takes effort. This is a hassle. You know, I obviously I had to work deeply in the field of trying to motivate unmotivated people when I worked with criminal offenders. I mean, they literally didn't even want to see me, let alone change their behavior. And what I found is the single most motivating thing for a person is the avoidance of hassle. I thought it'd be something much grander than that. But basically, people just don't want to hassle, which is their way of saying my brain does not want to expend energy. And so the brain will often message this into your conscious awareness as things like, I'm too tired, or that's too big a job, I don't have enough time for that right now. It's this kind of like, that's too much of a hassle message. And this is what you'll have to fight, that message. You have to see that message for what it really is, which is a lie. Because too tired means you can't do it. Hassle means you would do it if I put a gun to your head. You could still do it. Too tired is I put a gun to your head, you still can't do it. You can't even save your life. So your brain will exaggerate how much energy this is really costing you. And what you'll often see is when you actually go and do the thing, you're energized by it. And you go like, I can't believe I didn't want to do this. I can't believe this. Like prior to walking into this room, it just felt like the biggest hassle and the biggest mistake and a waste of my time. And by the end of it, I'm glad I did it. Why would I feel so differently? It's like the kind of paradox almost of you're too tired to go to the gym, then you go there, it turns out you do have enough energy to work out, and afterwards you
Mhm.
feel like you got more energy rather than less. Your brain will constantly try to sabotage change, and every person has a different sort of theme of manipulation that the brain uses to get out of this work. But it sounds like your theme is the hassle one. I don't have enough time. This is too much work. Look at all the steps. Oh, I've got to organize this and make that phone call, and just presents this to-do list of just unenjoyable tasks and says, why bother? Why do it today? Put it off. After you do it, you'll be glad you did it. You get the reward after, not before. Motivation's not pleasure. Pleasure is the reward for doing it. Now, I'll give you a very practical one, and it's the most practical, well, two practical steps I'll give you with this. For when your brain says something like, I'm too tired. First off is I would say reduce the size of the step you need to take until it's embarrassing not to do it. Because of it, what the brain will do to like sell the I'm too tired story is what I call the Everest effect. It will make the task look too big to do right now. And it'll do it by often by stacking, as I call it. So you got to make the phone call, and then you got to check up on the guy, and then you got to drive there, then you got to find parking, and then you got to work, and it turns it all into like one big, just this conglomerate of tasks as one huge mega task, like trying to climb Everest in a single step. And so you go, no, wait, what's one step that, if that's the only obligation I have to do today, it's embarrassing not to do it. It takes less than 30 seconds. Maybe it's opening the email that you want to write, right? Maybe it's driving to the location with no obligation to actually go in. Maybe it's just checking the website to see what time the class is. With no obligation to continue, this is the key bit. This is not a trick to make the next task and the next task and the next task happen. You really are giving your permission to just shave off this tiny bit of the mountain and call it a day after that. So another trick that your brain is
Mm.
playing on you is it's saying, do more research, get more information, show up. When you've got just enough information to know what you could show up to, show up. No more information required. Okay, so let's say you're going, oh, I want to try a range of hobbies. As soon as you get one suggestion, go to a class. Don't look at other suggestions yet. Because how are you even supposed to know which of these suggestions is right for you until you've tried them? They might appear to be wrong for you when you read them, and then you show up and they're amazing, and vice versa. You don't know. So this is a 3x model. You never keep thinking after you've come up with one idea. You now act on that idea, if nothing else, to dismiss it. And then you move on to the next idea. But the brain's trick to create the Everest effect is compile so much information that you're overwhelmed by it and won't act on any of it, but reward you for compiling information. Basically giving you a pat on the back for overwhelming yourself. If you just come down to this thing like, I must always show up to something, this must be physical, I must act or speak in some way that the things have moved. I've had a new experience, something I can then reflect on and measure to see if that was the right experience for me. The length of experience, this is the key where you make it small. Let's say you go, okay, I've got to show up to a jujitsu class. Like, fuck, I'm a bit overwhelmed by that. Like, it's intimidating. I won't know anyone there, blah, 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 blah. So you go, okay, tell you what, I'll drive to the building, park outside, look through the window. That's it. If I want to continue, I will. If I don't, I can go home guilt-free. I've tried my best. Really take all that pressure off. Because that pressure doesn't get you to the building. Taking the pressure off does. Now, if you look in the window and you're like, fuck, they look like friendly enough dudes, maybe I'll walk inside. Still haven't committed to doing the class even. Certainly haven't committed to signing up to a new hobby for life. I'm just going to go inside the building. and then reassess. And that turned out to be all right, so I'll go up to the guy with the black belt on and say, well, how's this work? And then reassess. At any point, I can run away. Any point, I can quit. I do not have to get to the top of this mountain. It's not an obligation here. We've been raised our whole lives to think we have to pressure ourselves to complete this whole gigantic task, or otherwise we're a quitter and a loser. But that's all delusional. There is no gigantic task. It's all micro tasks, and you can quit at any point in time, and you should if it's not right for you. If you pressure yourself to do the whole lot, you end up doing nothing and feeling bad about yourself and thinking that I can't do things, which makes it even less likely to do the next thing. And that's the whole point. The brain wanted you to feel this way so that you stay still. Not realizing, of course, that this short-term conservation of energy will cost you so much energy in the future. Things like chronic anxiety, loneliness, depression, they actually burn a lot of energy. The brain just can't do forward thinking like that. We've still got the same brains that we had 100,000 years ago when we were middle of the food chain and every day was a gift. We weren't looking that far ahead. We were like, how do we get through today without being eaten or killed? And then we'll worry about tomorrow. That's what the brain was designed for, and it was the right design for that time. But now we can basically make it hundreds of years, oh, decades, sorry. And the brain just isn't set up for that kind of planning. We have to override the basic tools that we start with and go, look, no, I can extrapolate into the future. It's going to cost us if we don't go to the gym today. One last practical tip I'll give you. When you have finally decided on the action you know you should take next, and you've got it down to a size that is manageable, and you still feel reluctant, just ask yourself, how will I feel about this tomorrow if I don't? Right? You're all set up to go to the jiu-jitsu class or whatever, you're starting to chicken out, totally normal. Just ask yourself, if I don't go to this class, how will I feel about skipping it tomorrow? When I wake up tomorrow and I remember that I skipped it, right? And get into that feeling, because that feeling's motivation. You want to get to the point where you're just like, okay, I'm just going to do this at a minimal level just so I don't feel that way tomorrow. That's the reason I'm going to set up tomorrow's self to be at least satisfied with what he tried to do, rather than having to wake up and deal with the guilt of having dropped the ball again. Right? So that's my challenge to you. Pick a task, make it so small that it's embarrassing not to do it, and then show up. No further obligation. And you will have to keep doing that because your brain will keep trying to rebound to stasis until you hit a kind of tipping point where it actually enjoys change more than staying the same, and then it will support you. Then it will urge you to keep changing. Sometimes you even have to rein that back in. But that's a problem for another day.